It's all about the baby boomer lifestyle. Boomer Life on CL 650.
Welcome to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton, and on Boomer Life today, we're going to be talking about your financial future. Many Canadian retirees are predominantly conservative in nature, like myself, but recognizing that some risk is necessary in order to achieve their long-term financial goals. And that's what Jim Doyle is all about. And Jim is joining us today. A well-thought-out plan for your financial future is an integral part of building the life that you want for yourself and your family. So please let me introduce to you Jim Doyle. He's a senior financial consultant with the Investors Group, and he's got a long line of credentials to his name as well. I'll tell you a little bit about Jim, and then I'll let him tell you a little bit about himself. Jim Doyle is a member of the Canadian Association of Family Enterprise. Since 2010, he's been with that organization. He's also a member of the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. He is a member of the Collaborative Divorce Association of Vancouver. He's also a member of the Institute for Divorce Financial Analysts since 2004. And he's a member of STEP. STEP is the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners. Jim, I'd like to say welcome to you to Boomer Life.
Good morning, Joanne.
Good morning. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I've read off some of your academic achievements and some of the member associates that you're involved with, but who is Jim Doyle?
Well, originally I'm from New Brunswick. I lived there as a child and then moved to Germany for about 5 years, and maybe that's where I developed my love of languages, of which I speak 3. I also like to tease a little bit that I speak financialese, accountanese, and legalese.
Financialese. Never heard of it before, but we're going to learn more about that one, aren't we?
Absolutely. In my working life, I started in the mortgage and lending background, and I managed a number of institutions across BC, and I was on what I would call the Travel BC program. After 10 moves in 7 years, I probably had enough of that. And in 1989, I moved on to Investors Group to become a financial planner. In my spare time, I like boating at Harrison and the challenges that come from water skiing and restoring old Corvettes.
Wow. Do you have a collection of old Corvettes?
I do. It's sickness. I think I need help.
Oh, you need help. How many garages do you have at home? Or is that too personal?
I have one big garage at home with lots of cars.
You know, we could do a whole other show on your Corvette collection.
Could we?
But it's not what we're going to talk about today. Tell me a little bit about your commitment to this industry and what you bring to the table.
Well, when I started in the late 80s, I think I was pretty green. And I thought it was about selling products and providing information with regards to where markets were going and so forth. And over a period of time, I became really aware of the fact that people didn't have the type of education that they really would like or the confidence that they wanted to make their choices that were impacting their whole financial futures. So I decided to take a slightly different approach and to engage in comprehensive financial planning.
How did you start that approach?
Well, as you can see by the credentials that I've got, I work in the advice channel. And in my mind's eye, it's about knowing more. And eventually knowing more led to not telling people more than I knew, but asking better questions.
So you have said in conversations that we've had in the past that a good financial plan is like a good roadmap. How does that work? How can you explain that to us?
Well, if we ask financially comfortable Canadians what their number one fear is, it's going broke in retirement. And it's kind of ironic because people aren't willing to cut their spending in order to boost their retirement preparedness. And we're also seeing an increased use of debt that simply wasn't there a decade ago. To avoid running out of money, I think retirees only have 2 choices. They can either scale back or they can build a greater asset base by taking a little more risk pre-retirement. And the challenge at the end of the day is getting the mix right. That's where a good plan comes in.
Risk can be a bit of a scary word. We tend to be conservative with our money that we've acquired over the years. And as soon as somebody says risk to me, it's like, I'm not willing to risk. I'm not a gambler.
Well, it's a common thing that we hear lots of folks hit retirement, and somehow it equates to protecting assets. And there's other risks that also need to be considered. Things like longevity. People are simply living an awful lot longer, and their money needs to do more and for much longer periods of time. Inflation is one of those things that we've become accustomed to being somewhat quiet over the past couple of years, but over a long term, it really has a significant impact on people's qualities of life.
So currently you're with the national firm, the Investors Group. It's not a strange name around these parts. I actually got my start with Investors Group about 25 years ago, and somebody helped me develop a financial plan, and you're going to actually paint that picture for us today, exactly how to do this. Tell us about your 25 years experience in the industry and how you came to this company.
Well, when I initially was deciding which firm that I wanted to work with, I'd actually started and been hired by another company. And when I heard about Investors Group training programs and so forth, that was pretty important to me. A company with a great reputation that's been around for a long period of time, has a national presence. Those are some of the key attributes of any firm that I'd like to be associated with.
Now, money is always an easy subject to talk about. It's not like we go out for dinner with our friends and we say, well, you know, what did you make last year? Or what did you make last year? Or who's... there is a small conversation that centers around, have you got a financial advisor? Or have you got a financial plan? But it's not really a comfortable subject. So in the weeks and the months to come, we hope to learn a little bit more about you. But in general, it's a tough question. I'm going to be frank. Why would our listeners want to work with you?
Well, actually, that's a great question. The challenge, as I see it for an awful lot of people, if you imagine brewing fresh ground coffee without a filter, would you want to drink that? Anybody that's ever had grounds in their coffee would probably say no.
It's cowboy coffee.
Absolutely. In the financial world, I'm a great filter, and helping people filter out the noise and the sense of overwhelm that it comes to making financial choices. I want a relationship with the people that I'm working with, and part of that is getting down to the honest truth about what they know and what they're fearful of, and knowing a bit more.
I think there's a lot of fear involved for those of us on this side of the counter. Excellent. So, Jim, can you tell us what the importance is of actually having a financial plan that's written out?
I think as people live longer and their money has to do a lot more for them for an awful lot longer period of time, it's important to have some sort of a roadmap to know where you are relative to where you want to be. Emotions have a nasty way of kind of making their way into people's investment choices, and typically when you're making investment choices that involve fear or greed, there's some hurt that can come with those types of results. A financial plan gives you benchmarks to measure where you are and adjust to changes when and as they come along. And unfortunately, they will come along.
Absolutely. Is there a good time to do this or a certain age to do this?
I'm involved with Junior Achievement, and we talk an awful lot about raising financially competent children. And I think there is not such a thing as being too early or too young to start this stuff.
Sure, we start with our kids or maybe our grandkids, buying them a piggy bank, you know, invest your dimes and your nickels and your paper, you know, delivery money, and you start at an early age, but there's sometimes at some point in your life all that gets thrown out the window. How do you bring somebody back?
Well, I think it's a little bit like exercise. You need to stick with it consistently on a regular basis, and you learn a little bit on a consistent basis rather than try and learn too much. A little bit on an ongoing basis, and helping hand coming from someone who's going to help steward your process is pretty important.
You'll help steer us in that right direction, won't you?
I'd like to try.
Excellent. Is there a difference between men and women when it comes to investing?
I really think that there is, and I think it comes down to communication around money and investing, and I think it's different for the genders. In our industry, we often use the term financial decisions and investment decisions interchangeably, but financial decisions don't equal investing. Now, according to a major U.S. brokerage executive, fewer than 1 in 5 women actually make investment decisions. And this is pretty alarming because investing is the foundation for solid financial security. In households where men make the majority of the financial decisions, we tend to see that there's more risk carried in the portfolios. Now, the reality is that women are outliving their spouses. It's not uncommon that they've never dealt with finances before, and they're less confident when they're handling them later in life.
So this is an opportunity for women that really we should be educated a lot more, especially if we're going to outlive our spouse. But I'm surprised by those numbers that you just presented, that the woman isn't making those financial or investment decisions in the household.
Yes. When we work with a lot of clients, we want both parties engaged in the discussions. If we see one person making more of the decisions, I think it's really important that we ask, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts here? We want them involved.
Mm-hmm. Trying to find more of a balance.
Absolutely. And that's a key part of our practice, is having both spouses engaged and their definition and perspectives on what they see things as.
Excellent. Now, you work with a lot of different successful individuals and families, and many come to the table with a larger net worth. Safe to say that we all don't have the same knowledge when it comes to investing. So what are some of the top financial mistakes that people make?
Wow. When we started looking at this perspective, there's probably more than half a dozen that we thought were fairly important. But some of the things that we keep seeing in our practice, people are focusing on returns and not the real issues, such as how to return retirement income assets into producing income on a regular basis. They're spending so much time accumulating assets that it can be hard to switch a mindset into retirement. They're fixated on investment return when they should instead be focusing on looking at how to turn those assets into a predictable income. We talk about tax-efficient investments. People are paying too much tax. And we often like to ask people, are your investment incomes by design or by default? We talk about longevity. People are just living significantly longer, and money needs to last a lot longer, and it may need to do more. When CPP came out in '67, and the average life expectancy was about 7 years in retirement, today we're seeing people living 20, 30 years in retirement. So I think there's not the history there to be able to say, well, what did your parents or grandparents do? So it's new territory for a lot of people.
It's because some of us are retiring or trying to retire earlier.
Absolutely.
What about supporting adult children?
Well, it's interesting. We see an awful lot of financially comfortable families that spend a lot of their resources on supporting their kids. And I think there's a core issue that for a lot of people, they're not looking at the impact on how this affects their own financial situation on a long-term perspective. And if you're a member of the sandwich generation, which means you could be looking after aging parents, you could also be looking after your adult children at the same time. You've got a lot of resources and energy going out to deal with this.
Sure, it's a great thing to consider. Not being on the same page as your spouse, that could be an entire show.
Yes.
And also another mistake that people make?
They're being too conservative with their investments. Financial security is a big focus for people, and they focus on not taking risk. The challenge is that they're focusing so much on not taking risk that they're exposing themselves to the other risks that are out there, such as the possibility of outliving their money or inflation. So they put themselves at risk in every other category except losing money.
Thanks, Jim. Hold that thought. We'll be back with a lot more information to discuss with you. You are listening to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we are speaking with Jim Doyle. He's a senior financial consultant with the Investors Group. We're talking about understanding and avoiding financial missteps that some people make for all the wrong reasons. For more information and to get to know Jim Doyle a little bit better, you can simply go online to www.jimdoyle.ca.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.